Hey all, today we're looking at this. This is the wireless controller adapter for Nintendo 64 from Retroscaler, featuring the Blueretro firmware. So a little bit about this. This is based on the open source Blueretro project, and it supports several types of controllers from Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo, as well as 8BitDo. And yeah, it also, you can update the firmware, and it has a variety of other features too we'll look into in a minute. So I got the gray version here, and just want to mention that this is a sponsored review. I got this from AliExpress. So yep, let's open this up and take a look inside. So inside we have the manual, which is actually quite handy. Now, I've already been inside. I had a quick look ahead of time, and it does tell us a lot, especially about some of the more advanced features I wasn't aware of, about how you can configure things like the memory pack. Now, this is the actual dongle, and again, I got the gray. It comes in a variety of colors, but I wanted the one that matches the N64 the best, and I think this is the coolest one. So, yep, that's it. It's just this. There's a little status LED and a button here, and it plugs in as per normal. Now, you might be wondering, why not just use an original N64 controller? Unfortunately, one, the wires are just not long enough to reach my N64, which is all the way over there. Previously, what I would do is I'd actually move the console and put it on this table, and that's how I would play. So I can't really comfortably use the original controllers. Also, while I personally love the N64 controller, not everyone is a huge fan of this controller layout. This will let you use any controller you want, particularly modern ones, especially the Xbox One or the PlayStation 4 or Nintendo Switch controller for that matter. So anyway, let's plug it in. Okay, so this is my childhood N64. This is the Blueretro dongle. So we'll just plug it into the N64 and power it up. So when it first turns on, it will be flashing all these multicolors. This means it's in pairing mode. So all you got to do is hold this button for a few seconds and pair a controller. The first controller I thought we'd try is the Nintendo Switch Pro controller. It's very simple. Just hold down the pairing button up top, just like that, and it will go into pairing mode. Hold the button here for 3 seconds as well, and it will go into pairing mode, and they will connect, just like that. So now we'll try our first game, Super Smash Brothers. Okay, so we're in Super Smash Brothers, and this game has rumble support. I don't know if it comes through on the camera at all, like in terms of sound, but I can feel the rumble, and I just died. Again, this is the Nintendo Switch Pro controller, and it works flawlessly. If you've played on a virtual console, this is probably what you're used to. Again, the C buttons are here, etc. And yeah, it's exactly what you'd expect from the Nintendo Switch Pro controller, but now you're using it on a Nintendo 64. How cool is that? Okay, we're back, and this time we're going to look at Banjo-Kazooie, and since, well, they're owned by Microsoft now, I thought we'd use a Xbox One controller. So first things first, we'll turn on the N64. We'll hold down the pairing button on the Xbox controller to get it in the pairing mode. And the same thing here, we'll hold this for 1, 2, 3 seconds. And it should be pairing, and we'll just let it sit for a bit. Okay, and they're paired, and just like that, we can play Banjo-Kazooie with this. Let's take a look at it up close. Okay, so here we are in Banjo-Kazooie with the Xbox One controller, and it feels great, to be honest. You know, Z is mapped to here, and then you can use this as the C button, so you can execute all your moves. Analog is perfectly fine. You know, again, it behaves exactly how you expect, but for those who don't like, say, the N64 controller, this is a very comfortable, very ergonomic alternative that feels a lot better in the hands. Even though I love the N64 controller, this does feel a lot better to use. So yeah, I guess we'll move on to our next controller. And I thought we'd wrap up the controller testing with this. This is the Nintendo Switch Online N64 controller, which is a very faithful recreation of the original with built-in rumble. So let's get started. We'll power this on. We'll put this into pairing mode again, and we'll put this into pairing with the little button here, and it will do its thing. And we're paired. And now we're ready to play Super Mario 64. Let's take a look at this now. And this is the Nintendo Switch Online N64 controller, and is paired with the Blueretro receiver, as we just did just before. And honestly, this is my favorite way to use the Blueretro dongle, mainly because it feels exactly how I remember the N64 feeling. You know, the C buttons do what they're supposed to do. You know, all the moves, you know, they feel natural to execute on this controller. So yeah, it works absolutely great. I will say though, I was having some disconnect issues with the original firmware, and we'll go into firmware upgrade in the next part of this video. But yeah, it kept disconnecting for a little bit, but once I did that, I had no issues, and I was able to play through a game of Super Smash Bros. Classic mode without issues with this controller. But overall, I'm very happy. Okay, let's get on with the video and move on to some of the more advanced and interesting things we can do with this controller. Okay, we're on Blueretro.io, and this is the web configuration tool for the Blueretro dongles. This is for all of them, including GameCube and PlayStation and other systems, etc. But we'll be looking at the N64 specific features. Now, if you want to go to the advanced config, you just click here, and you'll need to connect to the device. So you click here, and then you should see the Blueretro N64 dongle here. Note, the device needs to be in pairing mode. As you can see here, the device is blinking in order for you to connect. So I'm going to connect. And here you can see the global configuration. So we can change things here, such as our controller mappings. Now, I'm not going to change anything for the N64, as I've been happy with all of the layouts. So we can go over to the Xbox One controller and click here. But I'm going to go select N64. So now you can see we have the mapping. And to note, also, you can see the Xbox button is mapped to the toggle rumble pack and the memory card, and the share actually rotates through the memory bank. So that's interesting to know, and we'll look at that later. But yeah, this is how you can change the config of the controller if you're not happy with the current mapping. I thought we'd also look at the over-the-air firmware update. Now, this is important. Now, I've already upgraded here, so I'm going to cut to some footage where I have upgraded after, but I just want to mention, you can pay the developers of the Blueretro firmwares donation if you like. It is optional, but I highly encourage you do this. You download this firmware, and you can then upgrade it. And it takes a few minutes. I've sped up the footage here, but it's pretty straightforward, and the device will automatically restart, and it irons out any bugs you might encounter. Specifically, I was having some disconnect issues with the N64, but that seems to be fixed in the newer firmware. So I highly encourage you to go ahead and upgrade the firmware. The last thing from this menu that I want to look at is the Blueretro N64 Controller Pack Manager. So if you didn't know already, I've mentioned this a few times. The controller has the ability to also emulate not only Rumble, but it also can emulate the memory card pack. Now, if you look over on the controller, right, well, we're looking at the Nintendo Switch controller. The home button acts as a toggle for the packs, and the screenshot button will actually rotate through the memory card bank, so you can switch between either Rumble, memory pack, etc. And as you can see here, that's how it's done. And the same thing goes for the Xbox controller with the Xbox button and the share button. Now, this page here lets you read, format, and write the memory packs. So you can pick through 1, 2, 3, or 4, and of course you can read, format, etc., blah, 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 or upload your own. So that's pretty cool too. Games like Mario Kart, for example, let you save ghost data to the memory card pack. And I think that's pretty neat. Since you won't be able to insert any expansion packs into these Bluetooth controllers. And that about wraps it up for this video. I'm really happy with this dongle. Again, if you're interested, there's a link to it in the description below. And of course, you can use my code to save a few bucks on your next order, granted you spend over the threshold. So again, thanks again, AliExpress, And don't forget to consider looking at some of my other videos. Don't forget to like, subscribe, blah, 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 blah. I make these little videos on little gadgets and gizmos from home automation, etc. Anyway, thanks again. I'll see you. Bye.